All right, welcome everyone. We're gonna start the select board meeting. It is April 2nd, 2024. All members are present and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is behind you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Board members, any conflicts of interest in the agenda? Okay, approval of meeting minutes.
So there was one suggestion for a change. First, in the hearing report, it said several residents, and a citizen pointed out that that's a judgment. It sounds like a few, and I think we just say residents and non-residents. I don't think we have to have a numerical number there, so I would strike several, if that's all right with people.
I like the fact that you mentioned non-residents too.
Yeah, I agree.
Always.
So with that change, I move we accept the minutes.
Any further discussion?
Yes,
Hazel.
you had public comment, and in the public comment, I asked for, when you pass in the warrants, could you explain what that's for in 3 words, and if it's in the budget?
Yes, you did. So we can, where is the public comments in this?
No,
So then are we putting public comments?
We're not putting public comments in
We were
minutes. but
following
it
that.
doesn't mean we can't do it.
oh, right.
You don't record public comments?
No.
So, no, we were gonna,
We decided not to. The legal requirement is just motions and votes. And we decided to keep it to that and also resolves that the board is making.
And also resolve,
Resolves that the board was making.
so you then amended that. That motion to follow the public, whatever the requirement is, the minimum requirement is, and add. Actions, specific actions that
Planned by
the
the board.
board is taking, so you didn't just agree to do the minimum. On that.
Right,
That's good.
so we agreed for actions. Did we, you'll have to remind me, did we discuss or take a vote on that point that you brought up? I know that we acknowledged it.
You did?
There was
You amended
action.
the minutes.
Okay, which I know that was noted,
So the point is,
Yeah.
you do more than the bad minimums,
right?
I don't know.
So basically, we took action on that. The board took action on what the point you raised. We voted and agreed. I can't remember.
I don't think it was
That's
a
a
vote.
question.
I don't
I'm
think it
asking.
was a vote. I think it was just agreement, but it's not
It was,
recorded.
no, you amended the motions.
So I'm sorry, maybe we're
To go
talking about
above
two.
and Beyond the minimum requirements.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, we're talking about two different things. So we're talking about how we were gonna record the minutes, right, which was this winter. And I know that in that discussion, we said we were gonna do, at first, I think we were gonna, as you said, we were going to not do any public comments and do them, was it state is it state
The state
statute?
minimum.
State minimum. But then we did add to that. And you're gonna have to remind, does anyone, I honestly can't remember off the top of my
So
head.
you
I'd have to
go
review
back
it.
To
Right.
whether or not you agreed to put the public comments in, I don't recall that, I remember that you went above the bare minimum.
Right,
But my point was, even if you didn't record the public comments last meeting,
right,
you did only do a head shake on putting a little more narrative
Right.
on the warrants.
right.
So
That
by
I,
not recording the public comments, I think you've lost the request that you
right,
didn't vote on, that you agreed to.
Oh, okay, got
Yeah.
it.
Okay,
Got it.
so
Interesting.
I will offer an amendment to the minutes. Saying the board agreed to a request to add more information about warrants. Within the meeting materials.
do,
Second,
okay, further discussion on the minutes? All in favor? Okay. Um. For clarity's sake, moving forward, do we want to take action on that idea? So it's on the record that we're gonna put that note in these warrants?
I think it is on the record now.
Is it on the record though, only as a public comment, not necessarily as a board?
Well, what was, do you want to read back the motion? It said, I think it said the board agreed.
Okay, the board agreed, so that counts.
What do you have? for
I'm just
motion?
wondering if we're,
An amendment to add more information about the warrant, and she used the word more narrative. But you said more information about the warrant.
I said the board agreed to add more information about the warrant to meeting, packets.
I guess, yeah, I was just wondering if we were amending the minutes in that
Yeah.
action and not necessarily.
Well, it's
what
reporting
I
that we
guess.
agreed to do it. I don't think this is the kind of thing we need a motion for.
So then we gotta make sure that information, that
Gets in the packet.
goes to you and gets to the packet, cause that's your job.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you. All right, warrants. And
Let's have that information about these, right?
yeah, we can do that. Let's immediately after the warrant, motion, we'll have that as a part of discussion, what the warrant is for.
So move the board to approve accounts payable warrant number 46 in the amount of $64,085.67.
Second. And that is,
Discussion, and I'm gonna start with Bryce.
Are you guys looking for me? I think from here on out, we'll put this right in the packet.
Yeah.
For tonight's sake, do you want me to read all 24 checks, or are we looking for,
Well, I think the biggest one is the roads.
okay, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. So the biggest check in that was for $30,000. $30,566.50, and that was contractual for our plowing.
Okay.
And other than that, we have an assessing payment for $6,250. They get kind of small from there, so do you want me to?
So the remainder is payroll or,
No.
This
Others.
is accounts payable.
okay. I didn't
So
hear
and the
that.
only other thing that I think will be different from budget is audit, because right now I think the audit was 6,500. And this payment was just a little less than that,
6,250.
but there's still more to come on the audit, so we may have additional audit expenses.
So we've got a motion on the table, but in this discussion, what is the clearest way to get this information to this, to this agreement that we're gonna share this? Do we want Bryce to include this in our packet?
I think he
With
was
it.
gonna put that summary in the packet, right?
Yeah, if I could check
Okay.
that. Priority.
Sure, okay. And then some type of summarization in the agenda too?
Basically the drivers, right? The
Yeah.
big drivers.
Okay.
Yeah, like a 30,000 K, or if it's the school where,
Okay,
Yeah, but would that actually be part of the agenda? I mean, it would seem like the rest of the packet would be where that detail would be and not, I mean, the agenda is just
if it's in the packet, that should cover it.
yeah.
With-
So having the public know what it's for. I mean, last time it was just as simple as it's the payment to the school, and yes, it's in the budget. It wasn't a request to get all the line items.
okay,
It's just like, is it a budgeted expense?
all right. Yeah,
But
no,
so the package is available,
sure.
so.
No, I just
if
wanna
it
make
was
sure we're
not included
communicating
in
what,
it, Yeah,
what kind of what the ask is and what we agreed upon. Okay, so we get a second, discussion, any further discussion on this warrant? All in favor?
And then move the board to approve, that's a payroll. Let's just change that to payroll. Warrant number 47 in the amount of $9,032.06.
second,
Okay, discussion, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, Ken, it's, so. There's the general office staff in here, Kathy, I. And then Aging at Home, Susan Gould also, but then there's also built into this payroll is the lad rec employees.
Okay.
So that's what makes these up, but I mean, I can gladly put this in the next packet too, I don't know.
I don't think we were going to put individual payroll
Okay.
on there.
We can say payroll.
Payroll, okay,
And that doesn't vary a whole lot. I mean, if there was a huge variance out of the norm, I would think, you know, that might bring up a question for us, but,
okay,
the payroll pretty much stays
sure,
consistent.
okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay.
New business. Move we award the full depth reclamation and paving project bid. Well, no motion until we decide.
Yeah,
We're
so
gonna give it to-
those following along, we're gonna,
Never mind.
no, or sorry, no, that's right, we're gonna put new business in front of old business, tonight,
It'll be quick.
so that's what's gonna happen. So now, yes, Stan,
Oh, but I can't make a motion until we decide who we're gonna award
Okay.
them to.
so we're looking at, bids for, road work coming up. Bryce, you wanna kick
Yeah,
us
so
off
you
on
guys will
this?
see, I gave you that, breakdown
Oh, I see.
on a
And
sheet
on the
of
back.
paper.
Oh, got it. No, that's not it. That's just
I
not.
didn't see the second
And
page.
you've met with,
Road committee.
the road committees, reviewed this?
Correct, yep, we reviewed it today, we got the bids in, the deadline was at noon today, and we reviewed them at 4 with the road committee.
Do you have a recommendation?
I do, I can go down, so it's
Oh, I
really two projects, there's the full depth reclamation paving for Innis Ridge Road. And then there's the hot mix shimming. Which is for Old Winthrop Road, Pond Road, and Richmond Mills Road.
I don't think I have that copy.
So for these, you can see they bid them separately for amounts, but I'm gonna put in I'll just go through the total, because we were thinking from the road committee's perspective, it was better to stick with one person just for both projects. Of
course.
So we have Spencer Group Paving. Their bid was $257,000, 390.20. St. Laurent and Son, 331,605. Pike Industries, 279,050. And then All States Construction, $255,748.50. So with that, the road committee recommends Pike because of their satisfactory work in Wayne and other municipalities and their reputation for standing behind the work.
I like having the road commission weigh in on
It
it.
does work good for,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
so it gets some backing for the people who are out on the roads all day.
Right, and some detail that we wouldn't necessarily.
And you'll see Spencer Group is 20,000 less. We've just never done business with them, so that's why the road committee stuck with Pike, but
And have we done business with Allstate?
we had, and I don't know, in the past, we weren't completely happy with how stuff had held up.
Just in terms of kind of low bidding, sometimes people bid low to try to get in where they've never been in before. Do they have any kind of a reputation that was looked into at all? Do you know that at all?
In regards to all states
Yes.
construction.
No, Spencer.
Spencer, it was recommended. CH Stevenson does some work with them, so that's where we got that recommendation from.
Okay. Good enough.
I'd like to move that we award the contract to Pike Industries.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, consider Ken Foss as the next Wayne Kane recipient. Do we, so, you need action from us on that
Just confirmation.
confirmation,
That's great.
okay. Is And then is there anything else about that?
We'll have a award ceremony at a later
Yeah.
date.
Okay,
Do you need a formal motion?
I wouldn't think so, but
What?
I wouldn't think so.
I
think
wouldn't
it's
think
just
so
for
either, no.
confirmation.
No.
okay.
Good.
So we'll figure out when that's gonna happen. All right. Excellent. All right. Old business. Update on the 100 acre wood land transfer, to Kennebec Land Trust. Ken Spalding has been, the front runner here for the town in this and, welcome. Tell us what you know.
Okay, some of this we've already gone over, but I'll be quick about it, but just so we know what the context is. We're really at the point right now where we can transfer the property to Kennebec Land Trust. The boundary survey is complete, the parking is a public lot, parking lot for public access. There's a boundary agreement that we reached where the boundary is unclear. We had a land trade that added shorefront and acreage to the property. The terms for the transfer have all been agreed to between KLT and the Conservation Commission. And those have previously gone through the board. I think it's been a while since that happened, but, let's see, we submitted the deed and the side agreement to the town attorneys for their review. And that came back with some, edits that were recommended by the real estate person for our attorneys. And they had some edits and we and KLT agreed to those edits. We met with a town attorney about a couple of legal issues and he sent us a summary and you received that summary in your packet. And the issues were that there's a new law passed last year that states if the town chooses to sell a tax acquired property, then there's a process that it has to go through basically to sell it in the open market for the highest possible value. And so we wanted to know how that might affect what we were doing. And the answer to that basically is there are two things that mitigate us or protect us from that statute. One is we're not talking about selling, we're talking about transfer. So it doesn't cover that language in this new law. The second thing that helps us is that we did go through the quieting of the title process through the Superior Court. The other legal question is whether the town ordinance that was passed in 2019 gives you the authority to transfer the property to a Kennebec Land Trust. And the attorney said that he felt that the language was adequate to do that. But it wasn't definitive, and so there is a risk of just going on that ordinance. Originally, I think when we heard this, Leslie and I were working with the attorney, we thought, well, let's just get it done and say yes. And if the attorney said if there's ever a question that arose about the authority of the select board to make a decision based on the ordinance, we can go back to the town and get an affirming vote that says, yes, they do have you do or did have the authority. But the safer option is to go to new town vote, take have a ballot question that will definitively give you the authority to do that. And KLT that has reviewed our attorney's summary of the issues would definitely prefer that. And as the long-term owners, we felt it was a good idea to give them that more conservative approach. So that sort of tipped the balance for me to say that would probably be the best approach. I don't know if you feel you can vote on that tonight, or you don't have the language, but to give to make that decision.
I think the vote is the safe way to go.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want the land trust to find out after putting a lot of work into this property that didn't actually own it. That would be a very unfortunate thing.
Right, I'm not an attorney, but as I read through it, I thought that there were words that might go either way, so. Is there, Is the risk a legal one or is the risk situational? That is, are there people who might challenge what we're doing? Or is it just simply, let's shut off any opportunities for issues to occur?
There are two, I guess, two avenues where there might be individuals or people who would take issue with the action. One would be just people who in town who don't like the idea.
Mm.
That would sift itself out if you go to ballot question. Because then you have a vote and people would have their say. The other potential for question is the heirs of Robert Pettingill, where the property came from. If the town chose to sell, the way that the process works is you have to notify the heirs. And they have 90 days to ask for it to go to sale by a realtor. And then the town has to put it out to bid, or not to bid, but has to put it in the hands of a realtor. To sell at the highest possible value, and any amount of money that the town raises that way over and above the town's costs plus 10%, would go to the heirs.
Plus, it would be out of our hands potentially,
Uh,
unless we were
The-
the highest bidder.
well, the law has no, it goes back. There's no, what's the word? The law applies to any tax acquired property that the town still owns. And if you choose to sell it,
Yes,
then that law kicks in.
and if we
If you
choose,
don't sell it, if you don't own it anymore, then it's my understanding that, anyway, that doesn't apply. Or at least didn't apply as of the passage of the law last year.
and if we were forced to sell it, my point was that we wouldn't have it anymore.
Right.
Seemed prudent to me to put it on the warrant, what do other people think?
So is the warrant, I mean, we can dig into this a little more, is the warrant article again authorizing the select board to transfer, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not the actual, okay,
I think
it's an authorization.
authorization to
Right.
transfer, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
wouldn't it? The select board has the authority, if the town gives you the authority, you have the authority to sign, you can't have all the voters sign it.
I see.
So,
And, the side issue I just want to mention is this and a number of other things remind me that I'm really against having any non-official language in the warrant this year.
Hmm.
We've always had, this is what you're voting on, and this in italics is what it means. And then we've several times run into this where people say, but this italicized language means we're supposed to do this, but that has no status in law. And so we wind up in a position where people think they're voting on all the words on the warrant, but they're only voting on the non-italic words, and that's messy, it seems like. It seems like if we want to do explanatory stuff, we do it on a separate document.
That was my next question. If we're putting it to a vote, do we have a public hearing or how do
Oh,
we
sure.
explain people? So we would have another public hearing.
Well, we'll have a warrant hearing, but we should have a public hearing on this issue as well, it seems like.
That's what I was wondering.
We just saw it over the other day, to some context. This started more than 10 years ago. So another 2 or 3 months isn't very long compared to the amount of time that's on this, and that guy right there put in a hell of a lot of time on making it happen.
We gotta get it right.
Right.
Do we want to make a motion tonight that,
I move we include an article about transferring the 100-acre wood to KLT in this year's town meeting warrant.
Second.
further discussion? Ken,
I don't know if you need to do this with this motion or not, but the previous authority was given on a secret ballot question that was voted on by everybody the day before the in-person meeting. I don't know if we need to decide that with this motion or not. We just,
I don't think we have to decide that in this motion, because as we're putting the warrant together, we can decide which goes where, it seems to me.
yeah, I think we can Yeah, we can make that determination.
I think-
Yeah,
I think that we can sort out. We have a couple of things where we might go either way.
Yeah.
It seems like.
anything else on this? All in favor? Okay,
Thank
All
you,
right,
to all
thanks,
of
Nick.
you again, thank you.
okay,
Internet.
yeah, internet
I
update.
imagine you're also, when we talked about this, I'll be as brief as I can. A couple of questions have come up about the idea of extending the internet to more people in town, which is something we've been talking about for at least the last 6 years. And I wanted to contribute a couple of pieces of information I have, and maybe we can make a more informed decision. Two questions that were raised on or about the last meeting was, where are these roads? Where are these 75% of the town roads that are not now eligible for cable internet? And I put a map out. I don't have it here, but I can get it to anybody who hasn't seen it. The interesting thing about looking at the map is that people on discussion on Facebook drew completely opposing conclusions from looking at the map. It's all camp roads. No, it isn't. Just look at it, you'll see it is. Well, no, they're year-round roads. But there's some of both on the map. And the other question that came up is a very good one, which is, if the cable network was extended to the red lines on the map, which are not now covered, would people actually use it? And I thought that was really worth digging into. So I put together a survey and I'll present the results, and then I'm going to go through our options. I got it here. Put together just very few questions, and I said that this was for people who were not served by the cable network, but knowing that people like to contribute their ideas, also allowed, said anyone else can take it too. 103 people, 104 as of this morning, but I've only got 103 in here. 103 people took the survey. 75 of those responses were from people who don't now have access to cable internet on their road. I'm not talking about whether they're using it or not, but people who can't access it. Of those 75 people, 3/4 are legal residents of Wayne, primary residents of Wayne. 1/4 are not. The overall results from both groups were very similar. I looked at it several times as responses were coming in. Almost 60% of them get internet service through consolidated DSL. Another 1/4 use a cell phone-based service, including cell phone hotspot. 3% use satellite service that's not Starlink, things like DirecTV. And 12%, 9 people, are using Starlink out of this group. And this group represents, give or take, 1/3 of the people who live on those roads. This is about 200 homes, there's 75 people. So it's a substantial sample. It's not everybody, but 1/3 is pretty good in surveying. 30% said in my view, 30% say their current service always or almost always meets their needs, 42% sometimes, 28% never. 64%, just under 2/3, say that if Spectrum Internet became available to them, they would subscribe to it. And another 19 said they might subscribe to it. 17% said they would not, so 83% would or might. And I was interested in what you'd said about Starlink, Marianne, and I dug into that. Of the 9 people, 89% of them say the service always or almost always meets their needs. So very high. Among those 9 people, the service is satisfactory to 8 of the 9. 22% of those people said they would subscribe to Spectrum. 11% said they might. I mean, these are small numbers. So 2 of them said they would, 1 said they might, 6 said they would not. And there were a lot of comments, which I've given to the board to look at, which, as you can imagine, range from subsidizing, paying 40% of the Spectrum's cost of expansion is a horrible idea. One person used the word evil, to this is very important and we need this and we should do it. And a lot of other things in between, and a lot of other things that were not on that spectrum. So here's how I see it. We've got a mix. The reason that all the roads aren't covered is that the original contract with Spectrum was that they were going to connect every road that had 15 homes per mile. And we're talking about seasonal or year-round, 15 911 points a mile. And they were not going to count the others. And that's apparently in state, from what I understand, that's now codified in state law. A few more roads have reached the 15 homes a mile. They're not included in the ones that would be, they're not included in the ones that's where Spectrum would, and we would split the cost if the town voted to do this. I'm not advocating for this, you understand? It's just an option. On the other roads, people have DSL, which is telephone line internet, which is clearly not working for a lot of people, and the equipment is decaying and can't be replaced. That I have directly from Consolidated. People use cell phone hotspot, and the old-fashioned satellite services. There are clearly things that those things won't do that people need for work, telemedicine, school, etc. One person in their comments said that we shouldn't be subsidizing soap operas, but people are doing more than that. People don't want to pay attention, and they have reasons, and and so I'm not, but a lot of people talked about the ways in which they need the service. Starlink is new. People seem satisfied with it. I looked up on the Starlink website and PC Magazine. Both use the word unobstructed view of the sky, and several people have commented in other forums that they don't have that. There is an app that you can use on your phone and look at the sky and see if you qualify. So that's not going to work for everybody, but that doesn't mean it's not a good idea. So the town might vote to subsidize. My understanding is, and I'm not going to trust my memory about what the proportion is, but it's clear to me from what Aaron told me that our seasonal residents pay more than half the property tax. So the idea that we shouldn't extend something to them doesn't work for me personally, since they'd be paying more of the cost of the expansion than the year-round residents would be. But again, I'm not pushing that. The advantage of that, as I see it, is we'd be certain that the network extended everywhere, and it would happen relatively quickly. The disadvantage, of course, is increased property tax at a time when the budget's under a lot of pressure. Another option is that the federal grants coming with the Broadband Equity Access and Development Program, the BEAD program, are designed to connect everybody in Maine who's not connected sometime between 2026 and 2029. I've looked at some of the paperwork. There are a lot of steps that have to be followed through. I've talked to a number of people about this, knowledgeable in the field. Some of them say, the people in the program say there's plenty of money, it's no problem. Other people say there might not be enough money and there's no guarantee that the deadlines won't slip further. That's a question. There's not only uncertainty about that in my mind, it's uncertainty. It's not the kind, and it might be fine. It might work out just fine. I am struck, I sent out to the board that of the huge amounts of money appropriated in Washington for building fast electric vehicle chargers, 9 have been built, and the plan was many more than that. So we just don't know. This might work out fine. It wouldn't cost the town anything. And the advantage of that is that it wouldn't cost the town anything. We could educate citizens about Starlink as an option, and we could try to kind of ease the path for people to try that. From what I read about it, you can borrow somebody's and put it up and see if it works, and there's this app, and maybe a lot of people could use it. Maybe we've jumped past the need for a wired network. That happened in a lot of the African continent where they never strung copper telephone lines because they didn't need to. They put up cell towers instead. Maybe we could, Consolidated is going to build a fiber network in Fayette under state subsidy that's just right next to a lot of our unserved areas. Our consultant has talked to them, and they're told him that they're not interested in extending it, but he says they might change their minds at some point. And then I was thinking about it, and actually I talked it over with my engineer son, who's a town taxpayer too, and he said the other option is to wait a year and see how the BEAD rollout progresses, the federal rollout progresses. We might in a year have much more solid information about how that's going. And then we could make a decision then. So I'm not I've been involved in this so long and I just decided I don't have a horse in this race at all. I just want to bring as much information to the board as I can and have us decide whether to bring it to a vote without a recommendation, since a lot of people in the past have voted for expansion, whether to say we'll bring it to a vote next year unless we know more about BEAD, whether we say we should try doing more education with people about Starlink and hope they'll do that. And in the meantime, whatever else. Is that a clear? I just wanted to summarize everything that I think I've learned. And this is what I've got.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yes. Board members, any
Yeah,
comments,
jump in, please.
questions, feedback, ideas?
Questions, since you got a lot of good information on the table.
I have a couple. First of all, how long do we have to decide whether we're gonna put it to a vote? Because we have to put it out there. We can't put it on the day before we print the ballot.
Well,
for
we need,
example.
people had a ton of questions about the Spectrum rollout in the survey. Spectrum is willing to come and do a couple of public meetings. If we're gonna put it on the ballot, we need a series of hearings. We need to do a detailed financial analysis. We need to know how much we have left in our ARPA account, how much we have left in our reserve account. We have to go out and we have to do a legal analysis of their contract. You know, there are a lot of moving parts. I think we're right up against it, frankly. I think, we've been talking about this for a while, but I think it's, we're 2 months out. We could maybe pull this off in 2 months, but I wouldn't wait any longer to decide. If it was me.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I mean, I was just wondering how long we had before we were able to get it out there, but you brought up some of my concerns because there are a lot of moving parts and I honestly, I may not have as many questions if we hadn't looked at Starlink too, and, you know, I've got 100-foot trees backed up to the north side of my sky. And yet, you know, we had a clear view, so,
So I think we
You
could
know,
do it, but we'd have to start now.
yeah, I mean, we had a committee going at one point. So there's just so many moving parts. Would it help to get some folks together and have them look at different aspects of this?
We've spent years doing this. I think we either there's no time for a committee to look at this in terms of getting something on this year. If we put it off for a year, then the board and committees can certainly do that. I really think it's either gonna fall in place with BEAD. In a year, we really might know more about the BEAD program, though we might not, because their first internal deadline of the main connectivity authority is June 2025. And I don't want to paint that too rosily. They have missed deadline after deadline after deadline in our work with them. And their next deadline for deciding even where they're going to extend networks is June 2025. This is an organization that moves with extreme slowness. And when we were working with them before, they extended deadlines over and over and over. So that's the downside of waiting. We may not know any more. You may not know, I won't be on the board, but you may not know any more a year from now than you do now about what's developing, and we may have the same discussion then. This is a quandary. It's, people have been waiting for a long time, and there's this tremendous inequity in town, which really, which is a real issue. And then there are a lot of people feeling that, that's just how it is. People chose to move to where they are, or feeling that we can't afford it. And, this is if it's on the ballot, there's gonna be a lot of conflict, which is not the end of the world. That's what democracy is. But anyway, there's nothing that we can do in the next couple of months, it seems to me, that's gonna clarify this, that I can think of. I think we either put this on for this year or we wait.
Another problem that I have, because I ran into Starlink, was that, what did we come up with? 83% of the people that responded said that they would take Spectrum, it didn't say Spectrum or something, no, I mean, so Spectrum was the choice. At $400,000 for us.
It's a lot of
Just-
money per person.
Right, well, I'm more thinking that, the satellites, if we were to buy enough satellites for those 8,300 people, it would be $160,000. Versus, and it'd be done. I'm not advocating, I'm just, just thinking numbers.
It's hard, I'm thinking about that. It's hard to imagine the town voting to give, how much do the receivers cost?
200,
Okay.
no, 600.
600.
600.
It's hard to imagine the town voting to give a $600 object to each of 200 homes. I don't know, I mean, yes, it's cheaper, it's just a different thing than extending.
It's a different thing.
It's a different
Yeah,
concept than
it's a
extending a
different thing.
network down a road. And I don't know,
Yeah,
I really don't-
it is a
In a
different.
certain way, it's the same thing.
but in a way, it's the same thing, that's
Yeah, I
right.
think I'm-
Or, you know,
Yeah,
buy
I
one
mean,
for anybody who wants one,
That
right?
we even say that, or, we make them available at the I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just freewheeling, we make them available at the library. To borrow, people use them until they don't want them anymore.
I think
They
that's,
use them for as
yeah.
long as they live there.
it's an interesting idea.
They lease them for $3 a month. I mean, I don't know. I'm just, now that thing has come out and for me at least is very successful. I just think it's an option and, I'd love to hear from Amy because I haven't followed the budget very carefully. Where are we with the budget? I think it is the number this year that gives me great concern because, Stan's, county budget is going up by 40%. That's incredible. We have staff budgets changing with our town manager. We know that that's gonna change. So what else? Those are my concerns. The inequity in availability is very concerning. But in the meantime, I mean, are there internet cafes that we can build? I just wonder if there's other ways to do this without spending $400,000 plus interest.
We had somebody on our road during COVID sitting in the rain next to her neighbor's pasture doing her homework. We have people go to the library. The other thing that's interesting is when people have complained about Spectrum not being available on the road, they've talked about Spectrum quoting them $12,000, $15,000, $7,000. Those are three numbers that stick in my mind to extend the service. $600 is a different order of magnitude. And it isn't everybody in town who would say, I can't do this because it would cost $600 to get connected. Some people, so that would be a subsidy that would be needed or important to some people and not to others, maybe. I just don't know.
I think, well, you would ask Amy, I didn't know if Amy
Oh,
wanted
right.
to
Amy, did you
respond.
want to get at that?
Did you wanna weigh in?
I didn't hear anything, but yeah.
I just wanted to make sure, I didn't want to interrupt you.
A lot of challenges.
Come up with
Yeah.
I hear challenges with the budget, which, I guess that's my main point of concern is exactly how does it influence the budget? What does it look like if we're doing a 5-year loan? Or, in theory, possibly, what does that impact? I know we're talking about the budget next in our meeting, so we might be kind of combining the two, but I think that's really important for me to get a better grasp on this. In terms of the options, this is just me personally, I like option 5. And option,
Just to say, giving a year to see what happens. with the BEAD
because
program.
if the BEAD program did not exist, I could be more in line with looking into taking it on as a town, but that BEAD program being out there, it just seems
It changes things.
Yeah, and I understand there's some concerns about its, what, I think, what are the words you use?
Certainly,
Certainty, right, certainty. I mean, I get that, but
we're at the bottom of any priority list.
Right.
We're thought of as a more affluent community, and we have a higher percentage of people connected than the places that they need to get to first. That's why we didn't get the other grant.
all right,
And so if somebody's gonna fall off the list, it's gonna be Reedfield first, because they're 95%. And then we're sort of very close to that end, if there isn't enough money. That's how I read it, but there's no knowing, because the rules change, even with the other grant program. The federal rules were changing right up almost to the time when they gave the grants, and they had to, that's why their deadline slipped, as they said, we got this, oh, there's a new rule about equity, we have to go back and reconfigure now.
Hmm.
So
It-
it's,
it just seems, it would be. I mean, I like to have things immediately, you know, we live in a drive-through world. However, it would seem to be frustrating if we were doing a budget 5 years from now, paying down a loan and the BEAD program was an option. And
sure,
we-
they said,
we
sorry,
missed
we
it.
were gonna connect you, but you did it yourself.
So that is a concern that I have. How, now, there's kind of two parts to this conversation, and sort of the board's opinion on this, but we also have the component on whether they should go to ballot and have have residents,
Whether the five of us should take it off, should choose not to put it on the ballot,
right,
so
so
whether we should leave it up to the community.
there's two
to decide.
parts
That's
there.
that's an important question too.
but as the elected board that is advising, recommending, responding, and creating these budgets and creating the budget, I do think we have an obligation to put forth an article that is attentive to the town's needs, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
So-
only here the needs are disparate, yeah. In my time on the board, these two terms and the two terms I had before, I think by and large, the board did not put articles on the warrant, expenditure articles on the warrant without a recommendation. That's what I thought this one should be, because it's there's such diversity of opinion in town, and yet the question is whether we should do that. Whether we should put an article on that we're not recommending for or against, but I don't know, this is not right away, but we've got people in town, when I was first running this time around and Cindy Pettingill and I were running, this was the issue that came up at every public forum. This was the one thing that kept coming up. Was people in town without without fast and reliable internet access saying, when are we gonna do this? So the people have been waiting a long time, and it's gotten more important during that time, so. It's a dilemma.
One of the things I was hoping to get, because I think that it wouldn't be as glaring to me if we weren't looking at some of the budget restraints that we're gonna have.
It's the truth.
And one of the things I was gonna ask Bryce was if you'd be able to just grab some idea for us of what it would mean if we were to pass a bond that covered this, covered say $375,000.
Minus the ARPA and whatever.
Yeah.
It would have to be a loan. Bonds are only for things that the town owns. So
Okay,
that puts the interest rate up a bit. It's a different process. But
thanks.
yeah, even
Yeah.
if we'll borrow, right?
Yeah, okay.
I only know that because we talked about that in the past for the network we were gonna build, which was gonna be operated by someone else, so we couldn't go through the bond bank. We would have had to go to a bank, but still,
Well,
we could have
that's
borrowed.
good to know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that.
So what would the board like to do tonight? Do we want to dig into the budget a little more? Do we want to, how would we like to, I'm hearing a little bit of pressure for time. Which I understand that, I
I
recognize
think I
that.
think we should decide, because like I said, there are a lot of moving parts. If we're putting it on the warrant, we really gotta start rolling out a whole bunch of moving parts starting now.
Yeah, and that was my concern. What is our deadline for getting it on the warrant? I mean,
Right.
reasonably. Do we have 2 weeks? Do we have a month?
We can try it. This feels like the time, but 2 weeks could work too.
Could we review the budget? So we have an understanding of that, and then pick this up at the end, would that be reasonable?
I would prefer seeing how this fits into the budget in its entirety
Yeah, yeah.
personally,
That's how I
before I.
And then
Yeah.
come back to it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I put you on the spot there, Amy, but I just know that you've been looking at so much of this stuff. that-
So we won't take any action right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
and then
you know,
determine if we want to
I'll
go.
support whatever
I'll
the board
support that.
happens. I really, I've been the person doing the research, but I really don't want to advocate because I can see a lot of arguments for a lot of different things.
Okay, so, all right. Thank you very much for this information and providing these options. It's very helpful. Okay, so we will very naturally segue into budget. And let's see here, is there a review of the budget? So this draft that we're looking at, Bryce, is how near, how close, any areas that are still in question? What do you have here? You want to kind
Or
of kick us
anything
off?
that's changed a lot since last,
Yeah, no, I mean.
the last draft.
So Amy and I and Bruce are putting quite a bit of time into this. You have to bear with me, I'm a little congested, so, towards the end was really the capital reserve was where, some talking points were, but I didn't know if the board felt they needed to go through line by line to get a full scope or how. I mean, you can see there's some increases, or you want to look page by page and you can ask questions. I don't know how.
I would, well, unless you have an idea. go for
I
it.
would ask you to, since you're looking at it, rather than us go page by page, my thought is, are there any things that you specifically want to point out to us that you think we should know about?
So I think the biggest thing in the budget is, the RSU has, they're on their second draft right now. They're working on the third draft. And, when you look at how the RSU is funded, it is, 50% of the rolling 3-year average evaluation and 50% of the rolling 3-year average of how many people are in attendance from each town. And so when you spread that out between, the 4 towns, it's a significant increase for Wayne. Our increase is gonna be 10.16 right now, this year,
The increase.
the increase, and
At the
So-
current school budget rate,
At
because I
the
know they're
current-
continuing to nibble away.
yes, it's just what they've got so far.
Do you know, what drives that?
Um,
Our valuations or our students?
so when we looked first, the first time when we were putting a number in the budget, we had the overall RSU budget number, it was about 7.5% increase. It got that down to about 6.4, when I went to the last meeting. But now they've divided it out between the towns, and so that's where you have, the big differences. And so when you're looking at, a town like maybe Reedfield, where they have, their price per student is significantly lower than what Wayne's is. Wayne's price per student is over 20,000, which is a lot. And they're still working on it. They're working on the third draft. And we'll keep that going, but right now we're looking at a $263,000 increase. Again, they're looking at all the different expenses. They're looking at what needs to happen for the whole school district. They're looking at a number of positions and a number of programs that were funded by pandemic money that, now are they going to go away, or is there such a need in the school districts to still keep those? And they're still working on it.
Well, I'm impressed that they're at 6%, because schools around the state that have a bunch of stuff that was funded with the pandemic grants. People sort of want to hold on to that stuff.
Yeah, and
6% is sort of a normal increase.
and that was before the meeting started, I
Yeah.
didn't stay for
Right.
the whole meeting, but there were one thing I really would like to bring up at this meeting is that there were quite a few positions well, several positions in the elementary school that were funded by some of this extra money. And when you looked at the folks who were in attendance at the RSU, more than half the audience was parents from Wayne. And there were two parents from Wayne that got up and spoke passionately about the services and the education that their children were getting at the Wayne Elementary School. And they were very, like I said, they were just very passionate about keeping those positions. And I noticed in the minutes later on, when I got the minutes afterwards, that initial votes were that some of those would stay.
I say, Mike, yeah, you have a question, comment?
That dollar figure you gave again on the cost per student, Wayne,
I don't know if I have it right on me, but it's over $20,000.
how does that number for Wayne compare to the other towns in the district on a cost per student basis?
That is a really, so I might have to come back to that because I need to look at my piece of paper for that.
While you're looking,
Yes.
I was involved in the reorganization process. And we looked at different ways to figure costs. And the sense was that a straight per student cost would strongly advantage some of the towns, a straight valuation cost. That either just per student or per valuation would wind up with a larger gap between the costs for the different towns. And when the five towns together agreed on a 50-50 split as a way of making less differentiation between the towns and what they would pay. That was at the time.
What do you mean by a 50-50 split?
Oh, that the cost to the town is a combination of, is half determined by total valuation of the town and half determined by the number of students being
Right,
sent.
so what drives that $20,000 then, those two factors?
Those two, right, that's what Amy was talking about. It's computed from those two things, the relative valuations of the different towns and the relative number of students from the different towns. Both are weighted into the final cost of the towns, right, Amy?
Yes.
That's right. And that was by design when we were forced by the state to reorganize. That was by design at the time, that seemed to all of us the fairest way to do this to all the towns.
How many students?
So Wayne
You have
right
it.
now is predicting enrollment is at 140 students,
K-12.
K-12,
Yeah.
yeah. And right now on this initial, the overall increase is 10.16%. Which comes out to a local contribution rate of 20,380. And when you look at some of the other towns in the district, they're at 11,451, 16,429, 13,738, with the average at 14,302. And for tuition rates, the middle school tuition rate is 11,843, and the high school tuition rate is 13,300.
There is a provision in the organization for that formula to be re-voted on. There's a provision in the documents that were set up. There is a process anyway for changing the way the costs are
Just not-
allocated. But as far as I know, that no school board has figured that yet.
Just out of curiosity, what's the tuition for a private school that can't sell with? I mean, 20,000 sounds like something that would get you into a private school.
I don't know.
I'm not sure if
I
that,
don't know either.
I mean,
Maybe.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that also go into the formula because there's, expected revenues that are coming into the RSU. A number of years ago, they did a bond and so they haven't had to put as much in the facility budget. They're slowly building that back up again because so many facility projects happened, but now they have to maintain those to keep those going.
when does our, reeval come through? Do you know?
So, Bryce can probably speak a little bit more to that, but I don't think that's gonna be done until after election, after
Okay,
town.
so it'll be, okay. So I don't see a, do you have any idea what the mill rate in this budget is?
Yes, I do.
That would be helpful.
I was just plugging in all the numbers.
Yeah,
Into a spreadsheet that I have here, and currently, last year's mill rate was 20.74. I believe that's where it is, and right now with the preliminary numbers that we've got in here, it's at 23.35, which is an increase of 2.61. So there's, and so much of our budget is not, I mean, it's told to us. I mean, it's the RSU, it's the county. And the county went up significantly.
we know, I mean, a couple years ago, approximately what amount of money makes a mill? Do we know that? Is that, for example, like, if we're gonna, a couple years ago, I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, I mean, it's like in between 100 and 150,000 increase was a mill, but maybe I'm,
Yeah, those are figured out a couple of times.
So,
We'll
like,
figure it out right now.
Yeah, so this was a little table that was on last year. So like if a home value's at $100,000 at the proposed mill rate, which was 21.81, it was, so it'd be about 2.3, so it'd be like $234 right now per.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't sound right. No, sorry. That'd be $2,300
Right,
for a
right.
$100,000 value house.
1% or something. isn't it?
That's overall about 13% increase from going from 20.74 to 23.35. That's what I have. anyway.
Yeah,
13%.
About 13%
I wasn't sure.
overall, including the
That's what I.
county and including the school. We're not just talking about the municipal, or are you just talking about the municipal?
no, overall.
Overall,
I
so
think
including
13%.
county and school, that's 13%. Do you have a sense of the percentage overall in the municipal?
So for school district, it is 10.16%, and for Kennebec County, I believe it's 43.8.
It's
That's gonna
huge,
come down, that's still being.
It's still being.
It's still being
worked
whittled at, right?
but it's somewhere, last time I read was that it's 40, so it's not
Some-
going to,
Not going to go.
certainly not gonna go to 20.
No.
But that's not the biggest percentage of our budget.
Mhm.
So it's
No,
not,
understood.
it's not, if the school went up 40%, that would be a much bigger impact, right?
Right.
But either way,
What,
Okay.
what percentage is, the county? Do you know that, Amy?
on.
If you don't know, it off
County
the
of the
top of your head.
budget.
Yeah.
Actually, I can put a formula in right now. So of our proposed budget, the county is almost 8%, and the RSU is about 58%.
Wow.
big difference. And at least we as citizens get to vote on the RSU budget. Which is the other issue. The commissioners set the county budget, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let me just say, the county budget, in the last couple of years, we know what the inflation rate has been. It's been a lot higher than the county budget,
Has been higher than the inflation rate, yeah.
so this is the catch up.
Oh, the inflation rate's been higher
Inflation,
than the increase in the
14%
county
one year,
budget.
And the county budget is almost all. I think it's at, well, 80% wages.
Mike,
I'd like to tie in to this budget, the discussion on the internet. If you're going to go off and you're gonna look at the financials on the internet and perhaps propose that to the voters, is there a way to calculate what that $375,000 loan will mean to the mill rate? Because it sounds
sure.
like the mill rate is going to jump up significantly. I would not want the internet factor to be taken in, as that's what's driving.
Yeah.
I'd like
Oh,
voters to see, if you've got a $3 mill rate increase,
Right.
is the internet may be 50 cents.
That's what I was trying to get at. I was
Right,
trying to,
right.
yeah, I agree with you, because that's what I was trying to factor in, because. And if I sat down and scratched my head a little bit, I could figure that out, but I'm trying to do it and listen.
Well, back of the envelope, if over 5 years, the back of the envelope, the internet increase would be about $80,000 a year
Right.
That helps
80,000
me
a
with
year?
that.
80,000 a year.
for 5 years. If we
For 5
borrowed it for 5 years,
About,
we have, we're
sure.
starting under 400,000, we have some funds already. We have to add interest on. It's in that neighborhood. You'd have to, we need Bryce to do the details, but.
Well,
But
that's the number I was,
that's
So it
the
would
back of the envelope.
yeah.
So it would change
plus
the
what
mill rate by
money goes
about
to.
4.
What it really costs.
4.
So that would add about 0.4 mils to this, which is not, it's your point is that's not a major driver of it. That's right.
Right.
Mhm.
That would bring the mill rate increase to about 3,
Yeah, 3.05,
of which 0.4 would be the internet project.
yes.
That's an important point.
So so I'm just estimating, somebody could probably do this better, 1 mil increase is light at 200,000. If you add 200,000 to the budget, you get a mil, no, 80 plus 80 is 160,
80.
so. What is that math? It's not really I'm just trying to think, like, when you add this chunk,
Yeah.
bam, there's a mil. You know what, maybe it's irrelevant to this, it's just how you look at it.
The way to look at it though, my brain is blank right now.
Somebody wanna,
That's
Oh,
a- that's a hard
roughly,
one.
Again, roughly, Amy, that means that,
Now,
that
if
$100,000
it's on the
corresponds
size
to
of the
about
budget,
half a
then you
mil.
have to figure it out.
Yes,
40%,
Trent,
yes,
$100,000 increase in the budget.
Yeah.
Represents about half a mil.
Right.
If $80,000 is
Thank you.
0.4 of a mil,
that's what I was,
then 100,000 is half a mil.
Yeah.
So $100,000 on the budget is half a mil.
so, okay,
yeah.
So we have the figure.
I don't know how that's relevant, just sometimes,
Not irrelevant at all.
I just wanna think
We're
about it.
trying to get our head around it, what we'd be asking. people
Right,
to pay.
so we've got. We've got about a half a mil coming from the county increase. The state was 10% increase, what was, which, I'm sorry, the school, and that was how much dollar figure for that 10% increase?
265,000.
So there's a. Yeah, a mil and almost 0.4.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting, okay. Well, there's the driver.
No, well, it's always
There it
the
is,
driver.
County and the
It's a-
school,
Yeah,
good luck.
well, the school is always more than half our budget.
Huh.
There's no question about that.
So that you're saying that the newly assessment will kick in for next year.
Correct.
Okay.
It'll lower the mill rate and we won't pay as many taxes, that's how it works, right? Just kidding. Strike that from the record.
No,
I'm just kidding, I just had to throw that in. I'm just kidding.
The good thing about that is, has this changed, Bryce? The preliminary report wasn't gonna skew who pays more. And if it doesn't skew who pays more, it shouldn't affect people's actual tax payment.
Yeah.
If the valuation of every property goes up evenly, then the tax rate comes down by that same percentage. And then that result doesn't change. It's just if one type of property went up more than the other. And I was surprised, but I was pleased to see that. That's been a big issue in Augusta, for example, and other places. That the tax burden shifts based on a differential change in valuations, but I was glad to see that our report was that it didn't.
So in a hypothetical sense. If the town were to. In terms of the cost of the internet, like the mill rate this year would be. 23.75
23.85, right?
or 8.
Oh, no,
3.5,
75, that's right,
wasn't it?
23.75.
Right,
Right now, it's 23.35.
3.5.
Oh, 3.5, okay.
Yeah, it's currently 20.74.
right,
2.61.
right, but just for the sake of
Increase.
that budget conversation on the internet, it would jump that.
Well, and I think the big elephant in the room is the whole stabilization going away. So people 65 and up are gonna feel a jump from, I believe it was 18.87.
Hmm,
They were locked in that, and now they're gonna feel
Good
You
point.
do the math and that's huge.
And so
There's a lot
did
of-
they also though increase the homestead exemption for older people? Did that pass?
I'd have to follow up.
There was a push in getting rid of the stabilization to give another kind of, to give more homestead exemption to older people. I remember that was supposed to be the trade-off.
I know, I never heard of it myself.
The only other programs I knew of were. That were an actual thing were not that. They were-
Yeah, well, that's an issue for sure.
So that's just something to keep in the back. It's just.
I know they were talking about it, but we should really find that out.
Mhm.
Right.
And that was gonna be income driven, which is, but was the real weakness in the stabilization process was. There were no income limits on it.
That actually reminds me, bring up a good point, and maybe it's in here, but if it is, maybe a point, did the town get compensated or? Yeah,
I think it was right under, it was 63,000, it was right under. between
Excellent.
That and 70,000, I just got a check today.
oh, you just got it today,
That's
For the
great.
second,
the second,
But people got a 1-year break on their taxes, right? And that- Which will go away.
right, then you'll feel 2 years worth of increases.
So unless there's another compensating
60.
benefit, some people are gonna get a big increase. That's a big issue.
Yeah, for sure, so there's something to keep in mind for the, especially the hardest hit population.
Yeah.
right,
On an
It
income
goes on,
basis.
so.
could be almost, right, almost a. Yeah, $5.50 per thousand, yeah, it's
Mhm.
pretty significant. Well, I think we've pointed out the sort of the drivers, nothing real. Real new, I mean, these are the drivers that have been
One
the
thing that I'd like
drivers.
to get on the record, is with respect to the county taxes. They're fee very broadly, they're two causes of county tax increase. One of them is, there's a debate about how much they should be, but they're about $1 million short on one of their mandatory meditation programs in the jail.
Right, maybe that's that.
And they are going, the legislator saying you gotta fix this. Now, the question is whether the legislature will listen to it, because the legislature doesn't tend to see the counties as very heavy, not much, much cloud, but that's one big part of the reason the county taxes are going up. And the other is the incredible,
Payroll, isn't it?
the questions is it's all of the stuff, the details get very not clear, but it's a matter of basically most of the people in there have identical, they have health care, red drug problem,
Okay.
and what sort or another. Some of them are stealing, they keep stay at drugs. But yet we have to pay to treat them, and the state doesn't want to pay the whole profit. And the other part is the chronic, over the last couple of years, shortfall in the wages of the corrections officers at the jail. And those guys make the bargain basically. They make about the same amount as getting their burden truck.
Yeah.
And we've got to boost those up to a level that can be, to keep the retention of those people, because they're there in a year or two, and then they're gonna burn down. They're required to do an extra amount of cash, an extra five about, what do you say,
Well, if those people don't do their job well, we're gonna have more
Yeah,
recidivism.
that's right.
That's, we pay for that.
and that's a professional job, not just a prison guard anymore.
I agree.
Anyway, those are the two major things in the find that increase in the time.
I found what I was looking for. The legislature did increase the property tax fairness credit. So that people that's from $1,500 credit to $2,000 credit. And they opened up the property tax deferral program. Which is the other thing, that if people can't pay their taxes, they don't have to until the house is sold. Or until it becomes part of an estate. So they did two things in compensation for taking away the stabilization.
Yeah.
But it's no guarantee that it's gonna take it all away. Anyway,
Is there any other highlights, points of interest, questions about the budget?
well, the other question that I have still is, the uncertainty about what we're gonna need for town manager salary.
That's just what I was going to
Uncertain,
bring up.
right. That's still, that's the piece of uncertainty in here. There was something else that I brought up before, but that's the one.
So how would the town go about handling that? Do we have that possibility? I mean,
Well, now,
how-
what we've done in the
do that?
past, what we did with code enforcement officer, you remember, is we had a certain amount that we could pay. And we advertised for months and months and months, and we had people say they take the job and then get a job for more money, and we finally had to move some money from another, I forget, I think we moved from within the personnel lines, which we can do. But we wanted to pay more. I think we don't know how much we're gonna have to pay.
Right.
But I just want a reasonable amount of money in that line, so we don't wind up advertising at something and not getting somebody and not getting somebody and not getting somebody and abusing Bryce further, just kind of going on and on and on.
I like
And,
the-
And I think we should have, I think we should, and I think you've been gathering some information, Mary Ann. I think we should have a sense of what that's gonna cost and put a reasonable figure in the budget.
And
So
where,
the spreadsheet that you've got that I produced
Yeah.
is a compilation of a number of things. It includes sparse information on MMA, which compares salary
Right.
and what they have done is chosen towns, and I did not look into what their criteria was. It was not towns within the same, necessarily the same size, population as us. And so I left it to them and their great wisdom to choose the towns to compare us with. But I did put, because I think property tax valuation is part of it. I did put that on this spreadsheet. A lot of towns, including ours, had not fed information into that survey.
Sure.
But I got as much information as I could from us. And then I emailed every town that was in this group and asked them for information. I've gotten some back, but I haven't followed up in a couple of weeks with them. But you can see at the bottom, the other thing is that they're organized in a lot of different ways with a lot of different people wearing different hats.
Right.
And it's
So
very hard to,
compare.
yeah, it's very hard to contrast and compare. It's truly all over the board. But if you look down underneath the columns, you can see that the town manager basically comes up close to 82,000. We have 60,000 in there.
And we're in this I have a friend who's an executive director of another organization who wanted to do the same thing that Aaron wanted to do, which was to keep their own raises low so the staff could get more raises. And in that case, they said no. The person's approaching retirement and they said, we're gonna have this big differential. If you don't keep up with the cost of living, we're gonna wind up unable to replace you at what, it's gonna blow up our budget at that point.
Yeah.
And we had that and we accepted it because it seemed like a good thing, but that's one of the reasons there's this differential. Was that our town manager salary hasn't kept up with surrounding towns or comparables
Right, and
over time.
for whatever reason, we've got to really look at that at this point. The other question is, I can't guarantee without calling every town, what their package is, although there is a separate
That's it.
spreadsheet that talks about the package as well.
Right.
And there's differences in terms of what insurances are offered, et cetera. So it's a very confusing, pile of information.
Anyway, I don't think this is gonna be enough.
so are we thinking that
Yeah.
that increase would go right into the town manager line, or would it be in a different fund contingent upon? I mean, I don't know. the
We can
answer.
certainly spend less than the money that's budgeted. But spending more,
Sure.
unless we can spend less on one of the other salary lines is a problem. I'd rather have what we think of as a realistic figure in there, plus a little bit myself, not that I want to blow the budget, but I don't want you all to, I'm not gonna be here, but I don't want you all to be in the situation of, not having anything to do about that, right? And I
Yeah.
think it's quite likely, every personnel search we've done we've wound up spending more on than we thought we were gonna have to. And I don't think this is gonna be no exception. And like,
One thing that's troubling about the list of comparable jail supports is not another one of them, unless I'm missing something, that's anywhere near the size that we are.
Say that one, neither one of them, neither one of the towns.
No, but if you look at the property valuations, I mean, those,
or even
there's a
numbers,
lot of
right,
comparable stuff there. But no, we are one of the smallest.
Yeah.
And certainly, as I said, a lot of the small ones have not put, because I did try to sort based on size of towns, and that gave me nothing.
Well,
I didn't see that, yeah.
I used to, yeah, we other way piles did it all the time.
Well, the other-
Contribution today they make, well, would it be possible to make a couple of extra calls in that size bracket?
Yes, it would be.
Yeah,
And the other question that we brought up, because we've gone through some of this in our committee, is that our town swells in the summertime.
that's true.
So that's not reflected on
Yeah.
here. And there are a lot of towns that are not going to get that increase
Yeah.
during the summer and don't have that
Yeah,
extra
but-
burden to
yeah.
be focusing on.
One of the arguments about town managers in the first place is that as a town entity, there's a fixed amount of work. Which may not, I want interested in what you think about that, Bryce. There's a certain amount of work in terms of dealing with the feds and dealing with taxes and dealing with stuff that's almost independent of the number of people who live. You know, that was one of the arguments for consolidating towns together.
Yeah.
Which very few towns are interested in doing, but there's a kind of fixed overhead in running a town in the modern world, right?
Right, fixed costs
Yeah,
versus the variable costs that reflect
Yeah.
who's here and
Right.
what kind of services they need, yeah, and the number of roads you have, the size of your square footage.
Road
square miles.
mileage, everything, right?
Yeah, so because of that, it's, I don't think you're gonna put together a formula that's gonna pop out a number. I think more important is to take a look at what people are offering. And come up with a number that we feel like would be an opportunity to get somebody good here. And how long do you wanna wait?
What would that number look like, you think?
Me? I would say a little north of 80.
So our original last year, the number was 70,
no, that's
Right,
year to date. The
Year to
last
date,
year
okay,
budget was
pardon me.
58.
yes,
it was
excuse me,
58, right.
58, but then that also includes the benefit package should be
Doesn't
part of
include
that.
doesn't.
Right, sorry, the 58
It's just
is
a
not,
salary, right?
but we have to.
On no knowledge at all, I was thinking the same thing as Mary Ann, but you did a lot more research. I mean, what, Amy, what are your thoughts about this?
On the,
On what's a realistic figure for that line? Any
I'm-
ideas?
just looking at this, so I haven't seen it to compare it with other towns. But I know that when you're talking about a package for, the town manager, there's one line that has to do with, income protection, and it's like a short-term or long-term disability. policy.
Disability, right?
Yeah, so that's, the town manager is the only one that has that. So the two lines that could be influenced in that, general administration is the town manager salary line, that income protection line, and also the benefits line.
Health
for
insurance,
Health insurance.
that
dental,
type of, yeah.
vision.
Comfortable with it?
Interestingly, going back a little ways, and this more has to do with recruitment, outside of the money, Trent found this really great package that one town had put together. Do you remember that? That really highlighted the benefits of living in that town. And it was really a great advertisement brochure. And I think this town has a lot to offer, so I think that we should indicate quality of life in part of our search, but that's getting ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
Another
No, it's
thing,
important.
another thing occurs to me too, is just with if 80 is the number that we agreed we could use. As a small town, we would have a harder time attracting a good person. They're naturally gonna go to one of the bigger ones.
That's very true,
And they get
Because-
some of the same benefits that they get in Wayne and some of these other towns.
right?
So, so that argues kind of against my position of arguing that. Let's say, well, let's find out what more.
Well, I don't know.
Certainly, I
because,
mean-
I mean, I think there are people who would like to have a small office like we have. Who would like to have a small community, who would like to have the more personal connections.
Yeah.
And having talked to a few town managers, there are people who, in the larger communities, who have no public contact at all. Who are just strictly in an administrative role. There are
Yeah.
people who like that too. I think there are people who are both ways. We've had town managers, I think, who just absolutely loved the size of this community. And I'm not sure we're that interested, except they want to make more money to go somewhere else. But then there are people for whom this is sort of too small. And I don't, you know, people are different.
They're all similar in size
Yeah.
compared to. You know,
Thing.
yeah, other choices that maybe are.
Yeah.
Big place.
Yeah.
Well, I threw Winthrop in there, which has a much bigger population, but, you know, at 112,000. They're right next door and that's what they're paying and they are gonna get the benefits of living in this kind of an area. Clearly, you know, they're several times bigger than us and they're not paying several times more than us.
Is our town manager, or what's our full-time, like, haven't we had part-time town managers in the past, or,
Yes,
Makes sense.
like, was Amy part-time or?
I think Aaron was hired part-time
Originally.
initially,
Was he?
yes,
Oh,
from what I remember.
Amy was part-time.
Okay.
I'm pretty
interesting.
certain of that. I think he was full-time when I got on the board, but I'm pretty certain of that.
Mhm.
Well, and no town manager.
Okay,
was
I'm getting
only
nods,
town
yes, part-time.
manager. You know, a lot of them were
Just
tax
thinking about
collectors.
This for today or.
So I think really the question is, what number do we want to put in,
Just the budget.
in the budget
Okay.
and then
And
to
where
make
do-
sure that we have,
Hmm.
whether,
Whether we use it or not.
whether we
make
use it
sure
or
that we have
not,
enough-
but
enough
to
knowledge.
avoid creating a budget that is
Does
not.
this- Does this number include the package?
No.
No, it's a
doesn't.
separate one.
Just
So we pay
salary.
The package.
So it wouldn't, it's not necessarily, it's a $20,000 increase is what I'm hearing.
Plus, because it would increase several of the other lines
Right.
also, right? That's what you were saying? If the salary increased, would some of the other lines increase too?
No, the health,
Oh, okay,
the health, dental,
Oh,
and
it's the
vision is the
Okay.
same for
okay.
all employees, but the income protection might be different because if it's higher. wages, it would
Insurance.
be higher.
And Wayne's part of the withholding. The FICA would be high.
And if I can,
When do you really need that number? I mean, sooner the better, I'm sure.
I don't know the timeline, can't remember the timeline of.
I mean, I would think the sooner, I mean, to get a definite on the budget, when we really should have it, but again, I think if it's a figure that's kind of. On the top end, when you list a job, you can have a salary range, you don't have to
Sure.
say, here you go. 80 grand.
Good point.
Right,
Oh, no,
right.
absolutely, right.
But I think you want to plan, just so you have a top end.
Right, I'm just thinking we need a little in our back pocket.
But yeah,
if we're
based
gonna
off
do it.
experience, education, et cetera.
So,
Yeah.
do we want to take? We want to add that change to the budget? Do we want to put that 20 in?
Okay.
If
I
we
can do
do-
that.
Okay.
I also have another question. So I know right now we've got kind of the hiring committee, we've got road committee, we've got things that we've divided out.
Mhm.
Does that mean that when a town manager is hired, that those things will come back under the town manager? Or will we still be having some of these other committees and other?
Yeah, that's a great question and very relevant to the committee work that the town manager hiring committee has been working on. And we can give the short answer. I see Ken and, I mean, I can give her, Ken, do you want to answer that?
Short answer. I'm sorry, repeat the question.
I think, yeah,
So the short answer is that, the appointed other committees and commissions would still report to the board.
They would
But-
still be reporting, but it would be just more people to provide additional input for like roads
Advisory.
or.
That is,
That's totally up to the board.
you're right.
The establishment of those committees.
When Henry Stack and I were looking at different towns' administrative ordinances, what we looked at had, the board had advisory committees reporting to the board. That's what we saw in a bunch of other places. But these were, the board could generate advisory committees and would relate to them.
So, and does that answer your question? Because I think you're saying, so when we get a full-time town manager, does that mean we won't have any more committees? And will the town manager be doing all the work that the committees have done? Is
I
that
just
what you
didn't know,
asked?
like, the biggest thing I think of is roads, the town manager has been the road commissioner too, and the health officer. and
Right.
General assistants and some other things, so I didn't know if any of those things,
My sense is that in every town, quite often it's the town manager who is the road commissioner. So yes, that, the commissioner position would go back to them, my guess.
Yeah.
But I think we should still have committees where possible.
I didn't,
I think if we think of
Okay.
committees as advisory groups, it's always a good idea to have,
Yeah.
where we need advice.
But no,
town
he'd still have
manager
that
needs
role.
advice.
Yeah.
And then I know under the last town manager, that contract included, phone and internet and certain mileage
Oh, benefits
stipends.
of other kinds, yeah.
Yeah, but that was part of the contract, but it went through AP as, a different, right? Didn't it go through AP?
Yeah, when our phone system now goes
Accounts payable,
through,
maybe?
Oh,
rings, so you just get the app, so again,
I
that would be
think-
something
I don't
that
know.
could change.
Right, but I think in the
Previously it did,
previously it
once
was.
a month.
Yeah, we used to give part of the package was for the internet because of working remotely.
Yep.
Yeah.
So kind of a benefits package is a stipend for the
Mileage
costs
and
of doing business.
Yeah.
Right, when you think of how many miles of road and,
Yep.
Right.
In addition to the salary, then, right?
Because part of the job is being on
And
call for general assistance, for one thing, that you and I were talking about. Part of the package is to be accessible, so anyway, that was part of the contract, whether it has to be or not is always another question.
right. Lloyd, I didn't hear your question, or was that a question for
Would,
Bryce?
would the allowance for travel be part of the salary item, or would we pick up somewhere else?
I'm assuming it's in the next line down, travel expenses, right?
Okay, and that includes, that's what do you?
But I think depending on contract negotiations,
Right.
contract development,
It
right?
would be or wouldn't be, right?
Yeah, so I don't know if we're there yet,
right, I think it was only $50 a month.
right?
Which at the current IRS rate was like 90 miles a month and we have 33 miles of road, so.
Right,
It's almost like we benefited by that. rate.
And the manager benefited by not having to log every mile and submit miles,
Yeah.
so it's one of those things.
so we're agreeing to, that we need to add 20K to the town manager,
Well, subject to budget committee review, it
of
just
course,
seems,
but we can
it
present
it
it,
seems prudent to think, to at least consider it, yeah.
right,
Is that enough?
present it.
No,
Is it enough? I don't know.
Well, clearly,
I think it's probably much as I
realistic base
want it
what
to
we
be
can
enough,
do.
I think realistically, I'm not
I'm
certain,
not sure.
I don't know.
Unless that's
You want it?
higher than others.
Are we comfortable with that for right now?
I don't like the idea of going higher, but there's really nowhere to go.
Well, it's not set in stone. We
Right.
can, okay. It's a,
Good starting point.
okay, we'll start there.
We don't go any higher.
One of the reasons I was advocating for a larger contingency account, and I see the reasons not to, it's just
Right,
unanticipated stuff happens, that's the deal.
um. Anything else on the budget tonight?
Oh, there's something else, but I forgot. I was very kind of-
I mean, I do see, and maybe you've talked about this in budget already, and we don't need to go into, I was just noting the biggest or the larger percent increases.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I see,
Nelson.
and maybe you've seen an explanation, or has the fire department been into,
They came into the budget, committee, yeah, it
Okay.
was for equipment.
Okay. I'm just questioning, just looking
Yeah.
at those percent increases.
Is legal services going to be enough?
Oh, that was the one, that was the other. one. I'm worried about that.
So
one.
the first
One.
page,
First page,
Thank you, Mary Ann. That was the other thing that worried me.
right,
down in
Please, Rob.
contractual,
Was if we wind up with a moratorium and we wind up with a lawsuit,
and,
it could be expensive and other stuff too.
and other stuff, and then the hiring process has a lot of
Yeah,
legal
Oh,
aspects
yeah,
to it
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Well, and there is no line in the budget for recruitment,
And that too.
For what now?
for recruitment.
Advertising.
Advertising. So in the past, when
Search.
we looked at, more in depth on the legal
We were
line,
talking
that
about that
was
last
where
week.
all the notices in the paper as
Oh,
well
right,
as.
right, right.
That's probably not, well, recruitment. Recruitment is gonna be more than advertising, certainly.
I mean, that would have to be, there would have to be a little bit of homework to sort of come up with a reasonable estimate on that. I have no idea.
What are the aspects of that? There's advertising.
We did do a background check.
Yeah.
On our most recent, when we did hire. Before. I don't think it was very much. What was it, $65, $70?
Yeah.
Um, and we're looking at different aspects, because of the fiduciary level of what they handle, count monies, as well as, driving record, because we're reimbursing them for mileage, all those things.
Sure.
Will interviewing cost us money?
I don't think so.
Only if you'd use a search service or something, but I
Oh,
don't see
yeah.
doing that.
Well, that's the advertising part, and,
Yeah, that's cheap, yeah.
MMA can help us with that at a pretty reasonable fee. I mean, it's just a couple of hours of their time and they've got the network set up. So they're ready to pull the trigger on that when we're ready to go forward.
Let me go back to the legal if I can. Is that okay, Mary Ann?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
No. What you said is important. I mean, my experience of this is that we always run over the legal line. And it's not by choice. And that was my pitch for putting a larger amount in contingency. So we put it in legal, then it's there. If it's in contingency, then it might be legal, or it might be a dam failure, or it might be, who knows what else. And we know something's gonna run over. And we can't put enough extra in every line to cover every possible overrun.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
as I said before, it doesn't affect me, I won't be on the board except as a taxpayer. I think it would be prudent to know that we're gonna have unanticipated expenses. And to have a more substantial contingency line. And Amy brought up, how's the decision made about that? And I'm fine with having a more difficult, a more challenging way of tapping that. But boy, I'd like to know that we could handle an unanticipated expense.
You mean you'd like to see more,
Rather than put an extra 20,000
Yeah,
in this line, an
yeah.
extra 20,000 in that line, an extra 20,000 in that line, and that line, just in case.
yeah.
Let's say we were gonna do that in 4 places, I'd rather have $80,000 in a contingency account. Meaning that if one thing runs over more than we think and the other one doesn't, we have more, the board has more ability to deal with that.
I heard the concern brought up last time that presenting to the voters a big contingency line could be problematic.
I heard that.
But I understand,
Just
I
think
think
it's a good
you're
idea.
right. Do we have a method of moving, because I know we ran into this before, when we're way over on one line item. I don't remember hearing how we solve that, if we've got one line item that's not being tapped, where another line item is being driven into the ground.
Well, there's a percentage that can be moved without going to town meeting, right, Bryce? Amy?
15%.
Yeah, was it 5%
Yeah.
and then 15 for roads?
And we can move within,
That's not much.
no, it's not.
I didn't
And we
understand.
can move within a voted article, what?
I missed that, 5.
Was it
I-
5% and then 15 for roads?
From voted article to voted article.
Got it.
within each voted article, the board has in his discretion.
I
Right?
have to look that up because it's been
I
a
think
while
that's
since I
true.
looked at that.
Because that would, put a vote in for a large contingency.
I just think we're gonna have to, we have to cover, we have to approach unanticipated expenses, legal. I mean, what if our computer system gets hacked and we have this heavy bill? Bryce knows we've just had a serious attempt to hack into our system through an
Yeah.
email that I got, I
What's
forwarded
that
to you.
mean?
We do have a reserve.
What, does it make sense tonight,
That's
to,
No.
at least come up with a short list
We
of
should.
what
Yeah,
possible
yeah.
expenses are that we don't know, and then we can get some estimates to present and maybe put into this contingency
Well, I think
fund?
legal's the only one we know, but we don't know, a failure of something in town,
So legals, we don't know, there might be,
failure of a building, failure of a dam, some kind of catastrophic road. I mean, I could come up with 8
No, I
things
get
off the top. There are possibilities, right?
so yeah,
Any
legal
one of them could happen.
failure, I'm just trying to come up with like, what's a realistic number to put in there,
That's-
I don't know.
How long does it take, how long would it take to notice and conduct that meeting, if we had to have a meeting authorized in about a month? Would take the lead time for hosting a meeting, is it, some of these things can be
Oh, I
done
see
on an
what you mean.
emergency basis, can't it? So.
I think it would probably just follow the special town meeting, timelines, if I'm understanding what you're
Okay.
asking.
Mhm.
That would be, yeah, that would.
So that
Pretty
could
short.
be, I can't remember, I always forget those timelines, 7-day notice, 7-day advance hearing, 7,
And they cost about, what, about $700 for a town meeting with a vote like that? Is that what I
right?
recall?
So I think it is possible, yes.
So, anyways, for the moment, we need to make sure there's enough in legal. And,
Sure, I mean, that's another way to go about it.
have our special town meetings until.
If there's an
especially till there's not
emergency, we have a special town meeting.
Yeah, and have that, I like the idea, Joe, I fully agree with it, but it's just with a 3% increase.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
No, I think it might be difficult. I just want to make the
Yeah.
pitch.
No,
I
I
think it's a
think-
good idea,
I think-
because otherwise we put more here, we
You're
put
right,
more there, we
you're
put
right.
more there. It might be
You're
the
right.
same amount.
Sure.
Anyway, that's the other place that I think we've overrun that every single year, and we're gonna overrun it this year.
Illegal.
Legal.
Legal.
I think we should go up on legal.
Yeah, look at the numbers. We've overrun every year and we go up every year, but the world's an increasingly litigious place.
So what,
That's-
I don't know what a good number is.
anybody?
5,000, put another 5,000.
Up 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was
It's a
gonna
start.
say 10, but 5 is. a
Yeah,
good start.
I would say 10. But I don't
You're
wanna
gonna say
blow,
10.
I
I
don't
was
wanna
gonna say
keep
10.
blowing up the budget either.
But,
I'm just
yeah,
worried
blows
about
up the budget.
overspending. What's in the budget. Okay.
Cool.
So we went up 6,000 in our budget. Do
Yeah.
you want it so that we go up 10, or do you want another 10 on top of that 6?
I think you were thinking 35, not 30, with the up 5.
That was the one.
That would get us closer to, that would get
Right.
us closer to,
I mean, this is the
Covering
budget, obviously,
something.
we know this is the budget we can present, and it's gonna go back to the budget committee, and
It's
right.
gonna go to the town.
So 5's good.
I think we should just try to be realistic in terms of what we might wind up
So you
spending.
want 35 in there?
I want $5, but.
yeah, no, I get
I
it.
think
Up
it's probably
5.
more realistic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. I think that was productive. I'm sure we
Those
could have
were
talked
the only
more
two things
about.
I was thinking about. It's
And
otherwise.
it's probably
all-
not gonna change much from here on out, so you can have these as a copy online.
Okay.
Oh,
I
Um,
really would need for next week.
Okay, I was
So
wondering what was
the
gonna happen. All my
school's not in
doodles on
here
this.
and the county is not in here.
That's in there.
Well, we won't get those until they finalize.
Their first initial drafts, their amounts are, they're on page. 18.
Okay, so maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. So. Oh. Why don't I look at the 4.2 instead of the 3.15? I am so sorry. I'm looking at the wrong one, the last one. Okay, thank you. My
I get, just
apologies.
quickly, so I know that, in looking at the roads, is some of, just so. Was some of that not coded correctly, is that
What
why?
page 11?
On,
Oh, yeah, page 11, roads.
what are we referring to?
The 20. Oh, I'm sorry, those are seasonal. Probably hasn't been spent seasonal stuff, like 2024 year to date.
What,
Oh, I don't know,
road,
calcium chloride,
yeah, those
just
are
because I
for-
had seasonal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are, the roads, just when they get dusty,
Yeah.
they spread that,
Oh,
we
that's the
did some
dirt.
recoding because there was some issues with that, but. I had looked over it with Bruce to kind of correct where. Some of those major occurrences were with the December storm,
Okay,
that really threw it out of whack, but. These numbers too for roads have all been gone through by the road
yeah,
committee.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's great.
okay,
That's great.
I'm good, that's good. Great, all right. Thanks. Anything else? We good? Yeah,
How will this get communicated back to them then?
well, I think because this is, we can
Well,
present
people
those changes
Yeah, okay, we'll-
to the next budget meeting.
Yeah, it's just next week.
The changes, the
And
I'll
then-
send you
20K on the TM,
Okay.
the 5 on the legal. And I think that was the only change.
Those are the ones, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay,
And so now we go back to whether what we want to do with this, all the internet options, right?
yeah.
I guess my question would be, how would you propose the question to the voters? How would that be?
I think the question would read, will we raise? What we did last time is, will we raise X amount of money? To,
Okay,
subsidize, et cetera. Impact on, and we describe impact borrowed over 5 years. At a net cost of X amount per year. That's how we did it before.
Okay.
We provided information and we, meetings and. Talked about it. It's an appropriation. So we would follow that process, right? And then we'd explain the total amount, I think we did then was appropriate the total amount and then make clear what that works out to a year and what it works out to in an increase to an individual's property tax,
Mhm.
the average home's property tax.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a little table.
Right.
That kind of shows it for all the different, some different levels of.
Right, what the average valuation is and what it is in this valuation, that value. So that people see what it would cost them.
Board, well, I think you're asking how we wanna, yeah, do out.
I think it's really time, we've been talking about it a long time. I think we're just barely, I think we're barely in time. To get it on the warrant without a recommendation, but either way, to either bring it to the town or not. I think we're sort of out of time for. I think we're at the time to decide. I'm putting it off. Like I said, we gotta figure loans, we gotta make sure we have the ARPA amount, we have to have Spectrum in for educational, we have to do hearings. We have to hear, we'll hear more from people, that process is gonna take a while, we only got 2 months. We could do it, but I wouldn't think we should defer the decision. So. I want to make sure there's enough time that everybody in town, if it's gonna be on the warrant, I want to make sure everybody in town knows exactly what's being voted on, what the details are, and people have a chance to have all their questions answered, and people had a ton of questions, largely questions of Spectrum. How far would they come up my driveway, what would cost and all that, that's a bunch of questions, and Spectrum said they're willing to come and do a bunch of meetings, but there's gonna be time, we're gonna need time to talk it over as we did last time.
So how do we formulate a suitable suitable warrant language that also allows the budget to change whether with
Right.
the 4/10 of 1% or whatever it was.
Right.
How do we do this? There must be a way.
What we've typically done is say, if people vote on everything in tonight's budget. We said at the beginning, if people vote yes on everything in
Mhm.
tonight's budget, this will be the mill rate.
Okay.
And then anything that doesn't get voted reduces the mill rate by that
Right.
much, and we would say in this warrant, this would increase that, this is. This part of the mill rate increase, and then the final number, only, the final number is only really arrived at the end of the meeting,
Okay.
right? Have I got that right?
Yeah, I
Is
think
it At the end of
so,
the meeting, because it's a cumulative
Mhm.
number.
Yeah.
If something gets raised or lowered, then the number that
Yeah.
we went in with
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
So we don't actually know until the very end
That's
what the total
parliamentary.
number is, and that's the other question, if we put this on, where does it go? Does it go at the end? Does it wind up, people vote on this and they kick something else out, does it go on the day, that's a whole other question. Is where the right
The
place
end,
is in the
But
process.
it's the, I mean, it's the one biggest thing, it's like it'll be change from that.
I think there's a lot of logic to putting it at the end.
Yeah.
So it
I-
doesn't drive the other stuff. If it's the one thing that, if we put it in and we're not making a recommendation.
Yeah.
Then I think it's at the end.
Yeah.
Now, granted, that means some people will have left, but that's life.
Yeah.
We're hoping people will stay on for the discussion, and I've been thinking about that, that seems like, originally I thought we should put it on the day before. Yeah, that's the other argument, so more people get to vote on it. And it's secret ballot and we can have, absentee voting.
Mhm.
And that gets the maximum representation, but that means that if it passes, that's already kicked into to affect everything else that gets voted on after it.
Yeah.
I
So
I think there's an
I'm
argument
sorry,
both ways.
I was lost in my thoughts for a moment about this. Can I sum it up? We either put it to a secret ballot the day before, or we just put it in the budget and see if people say, take it out.
Or we decide that we're gonna make the decision for people, which I'm a little uncomfortable with, but it still might be the right thing if we don't think it's prudent. That's the question.
My concern still goes, I mean, I think Bryce brought up a good point, and I think, I mean, there are some options for folks, as you pointed out, by checking into the state. I mean, if we bring this on, we're
Oh, yeah.
we're looking at a 6 mil
Sure.
increase for folks who had the cap. I mean, that's an amount, that's a dollar amount.
It was one of my nightmares when we were talking about building a fiber network, and we voted to do it, we didn't get the grant. But my nightmare was the week after we spent the money, some new wireless hoo-ha comes out that's, twice as good and half, it's.
I mean,
It's hard to know.
It's like one of those things when you look at it separately. You can rationalize it's only 0.4 of a mil, it's easy to sort of say, it's not,
It is, yeah.
but when obviously we know, once you start to accumulate,
Mhm.
it's all the parts. And I am,
That's tough.
I'm concerned my concern is the tax impact. I'm unsettled on whether or not the board should steer our information. In a sense. I'm unsettled in the answer of like. I believe in democracy. I want people to vote, but I'm not sure if if this presentation is complete in all of its impacts on the budget and how we can communicate that. And, do we have time to communicate that and have hearings, like your point, so that's where I'm,
And the other options, I mean, we have 5 different options
Right.
here.
I mean,
It's
one,
hard to,
sorry.
no, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, how do you, if you really have 5 options, how do you put that to a vote?
Well, it's really two. It's either do this or don't do it, and we could do everything else.
Mhm.
Right.
That really, the other 4 are things we should do if we don't put it to vote,
I mean, one possibility is if there's,
or if it doesn't pass. Go ahead.
Right,
it's just an idea. I don't know if it's the best idea, but if there's a time crunch to communicate. I mean, we've been talking about this. I mean, if people want to know, they're probably tuning in.
I think we could do it if we did it now. I'm gonna get some water. I think we could do it.
Hazel.
Does this have to go to public comment or can I make an observation?
Yeah, weigh in,
But as a taxpayer, I'm concerned about putting $400,000 to benefit 200 houses, that's basically $2,000 per house. And, so, and cavalierly saying, oh, it's just $500,000 to the tax rate. I'm concerned about that because like everyone pointed out, the mill rate is going up and up. And costs that you can't control, the county, the school, probably the roads. There are costs that are pretty important that are not optional. But if you look at what we've heard from Stan, this has been discussed for the last 10 years. And I've come to quite a few of these meetings. I'm not seeing anyone beating down the door saying this is like the most important thing to us. And even the survey, if you do the math, there's 75 people who don't have access, of which 64% said they would want it. So that's only 50% of the 500 houses. You've only got, not even 50%, that's 20.
200
Yeah.
properties, I think.
It's 48 out of 200 houses if you got only one response per household, not 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5.
If this is representative, it's,
Representative. or
if
not,
it's
I'm not-
representative, it's 2/3 of the household.
I'm not hearing a lot of advocacy from the general public.
Hmm.
And when I listened to the select board, I heard Marianne with concerns, I had Trent with concerns, and even you said your son as a taxpayer had concerns. The biggest concern seems to be about the inequity, which is the whole point of what the state's trying to resolve. So I'm not sure why you would hurry up and push something through without, a strong sponsor behind it or a strong advocacy.
Well,
Or-
and Trent also, this is kind of where my head's going too, we put it in place and then. We've put all this money in and the taxpayers have and 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, we find we could get it for free.
Yeah.
That would be.
And you're gonna be paying the bill 5 years for something that, well, you waited. Or determine the interest. Or determine if there's a cost sharing, or determine, other, like, is it really necessary?
That's it.
I will advocate for, both of my neighbors who are not, who are heavy taxpayers. But are not able to vote because they are seasonal residents. And, have very poor connection. They're not gonna spend $600 to get a Starlink set up. To be here for so many months, 5 months of the year, whatever, but, I think we have to. I just feel, and I have to advocate for them, for us, for part of the town that doesn't have any other option. We're struggling on, we're lucky if we get 3 megabytes per second. We're lucky if that's on a good day. And, we have, as Stan pointed out, those seasonal residents pay a lot of our taxes and don't put any other burden on the town as far as the school system or anything else. I just need to say that.
Can I go back to how many students are in the RSU that we're paying $20,000 a year for?
140.
That's less than the number of people on these roads. And so think of all the taxpayers who are paying for those students at 20,000 each. But they don't have students in school.
But we want an educated public.
Yes, I'm having.
Thank you, Amy.
Educated is having the internet, we're having speed that's commensurate with being able to do something legitimate with it.
Well, and so that's
And
one,
One other point.
pardon me.
How, I pay for all the roads in Wayne, but I travel very few of them. But yet I'm paying for all of them. So I don't understand the logic behind saying we don't want to pay for a few people that have high-speed internet. Because many do, it's not fiber, it's cable. You might be getting 75 to 100 megabytes per second. But down some of these roads, you either can't get anything or you're getting 3 megabytes per second. And I think by raising the standard for the whole of the town, you're bringing everybody up with it, just like having an educated workforce or an educated student body. You're bringing everything up, but you're also bringing up property values. I have a number of friends who visit from out of state. When I tell them I'm getting 3 megabytes per second, they're saying moving here is a non-starter. I can't live with it. And don't look elsewhere. And I think that's what we're going to be confronted with if you wait another 1, 2, 3 years for the federal government or this agency to determine if they ever will give you the money.
I don't think that we would all get fiber. Only the lines that are not here now.
Understood, but
Yeah.
those who can get cable are getting far better than 3 megabytes per second.
We are hearing from a lot of people who need and want more. They're not here in the meeting, but we have them in survey comments, we have them in emails, it's clear that there is a real need. The only question is whether we should address it in this way. I don't think we can assume this. I don't think we should. I don't think it's true that there's no need. There is a need.
So I just, now I have to go back to the beginning because if I have misunderstood this, I'm in trouble. Does this project benefit other folks who have poor internet? It only the.
You mean people who are getting Spectrum now?
Yeah,
Yeah. No, Spectrum says they're going to upgrade the rest of their network, whether we do this or not. That's part of their corporate plan.
okay, so the people who are
But
getting
this,
that
this,
internet
this,
now are gonna get better.
it's the theory. I mean, from a technical point of view, having talked to people who are getting what they consider to be bad cable internet, some of that is having a bad Wi-Fi router in their house. Some of it's fixable. Some of it is not, but a lot of it is. I'm not convinced that that's all the cable network, but there are two independent things. This project would only provide service to the people who don't have access to service now. And the reason they're doing fiber is that it's cheaper to build out a fiber network now than to build out a wired cable network. I'm convinced that if they could build a cable network cheaper, they'd do that. But they say that the rest of the town's gonna be upgraded anyway, one way or the other. So
Wonderful.
they're saying there won't be significant inequity in the future with the town, the areas not now connected, having so much better service. But that's a whole separate question. This
Okay.
is definitely, if
So
the
this
town did
project
this,
would
it would be, everyone pays in for a benefit for some. It would be that.
Well, and that towns do that,
Towns
right?
do that.
If,
Like you said,
but just,
but I don't think it would.
looking at the numbers, if we're gonna, if you enrolled in that state program, hadn't paid taxes or had a cap, you're starting at 18. If let's just say this passes, mill rate's going up to 24, that's an additional $6, which I think on 100,000 equates to $600 a year,
Yeah.
which is 600, you're paying $600 a year. It's just an interesting how it's like free choice by the Starlink. There's your $600 or your $600 increase is going, it's just how it.
There's also a
You want to control
$500.
how you spend it, or
That's not the comparison.
There's a $500 increase in the tax fairness program, so that's.
$600 just-
So what in my wild thinking, rather than the 400,000 towards 200 lines, could we not, if we put 400,000 towards Starlink, people would still have to pay Starlink for their
right.
subscriptions, but they do with.
What happens if they sell their house and take all the, it opens a can of worms, right?
Well, yeah, this is just me not thinking out, okay, this belongs to the town, you can use it. I'm not putting a project together, but I'm just wondering for the price, is there something that should be explored now that, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, when we were dealing with this, there was one decent option. I'm not advocating for it. I just wonder if there's more there. But, if we need to bring this to a vote, I need to decide that tonight, that's a moot point anyway.
And the core question is who decides? Do we in this room decide? That's really the question that's in front of us,
Right,
is who should make this decision, not yes or no.
and do we have all the information we want right now?
We don't have it all right now, once we have it in time for the public hearings involved.
Well, there's no question that we can have a full understanding of this particular project.
Mhm.
We have a lot of the information and we can get what else we need. we can't now foresee the future, and we won't in a year be able to foresee the future either, so. It's. This is the way it is.
I
Ken,
just have a question. There are plenty of examples where the public money pays for a subset of the population.
Yeah.
Sure.
Whether it's education or roads or whatever it might be. Are there other examples where we will pay a private company to build their own infrastructure that they then own? Is that something that is?
Well, that's an
unusual, or
important
is that
question,
something
yeah.
I'm just not thinking of happens frequently.
That's an important question.
I have to think about that a little more. It's a good question.
Well, TIF money is quite often for that, right? When you
Like
give money
incentives.
to a town or from a town to a company in tax abatements or tax relief, so they will come to your town.
Right.
Well, that's
Hello?
di- I mean,
Hello?
Hi,
we're gonna do-
my question is, we're paying Spectrum to come here for $400,000. And we're all gonna continue to pay the current rates. They are a company that's in business to make money. So those are their lines, they own it, they maintain it. I just feel like maybe that $400,000 is more than we want to buy into, even though I have poor internet service. But I do question the rate, the amount they're charging us. And we have so many other expenses for people that can't afford to pay their taxes, as someone has also pointed out, that this is going to be hard to take out a loan for this. But I would think that Spectrum this is their property, this is their moneymaker. Don't charge us $400,000 to use your equipment, because you're going to charge us every month to use it. Thank you.
Thanks. Mike, you had a hand raised.
Well, I think Ken's got a good question, but it may go beyond just the town of Wayne. Do any other towns pay a company like a Spectrum or a private entity to establish a business in their town? And I don't know for sure, but I would think some towns may be paying it in order to get that sort of.
Right. Well, I think we can, I mean, for tonight's,
They're just,
Yeah,
they're not
Stan.
under any obligation. They're not under any legal obligation to serve the whole town. Their figures, which according to our internet consultant and my understanding of what we were talking about before for a network, their total of $1 million to build out the town seems to our consultant, and based on what we had, what we were looking at before, a number that, an industry number. And they're saying that they pay 2/3 of it, they pay 60% and we pay 40%. But it's an interesting question, whether, and both I and our internet consultant have tried to get them to a lower figure and they haven't gone there. They're saying this is, we don't have to do this. This is not a profit-making operation for us to run all that because of the smaller number of people on those networks and the people who would take it. So we were looking at a public-private partnership before, and we looked at a fiber network. I know that partnerships of that kind have come up before. But it's a really good question whether we should do this. And again, the question is whether it's something the board should decide or whether something the town should decide. I think there will be many arguments on either side of this.
I'm gonna throw this out there as an idea. It might not be the best idea, but an idea nonetheless. There is a presidential election in November that gets great turnout. If we're crunched for time now, just it's a thought. And I think we have put town initiated
Well, that's an interesting idea.
questions in that November 6th election. We've done it in
Independent
the
of the rest
past.
of the budget. Yeah.
I think we've done it in the past. It's an idea to give us some more time for this deliberation. It's an idea to discuss more, and it's an opportunity. Generally speaking, that's the best voter turnout. But is that true?
Oh, definitely.
That's a really
That's
interesting
very good.
idea.
So it's a thought because
That's
I'm
halfway in
hearing,
between the wait a year and do it now.
I'm
And
not,
it gets us a big turnout.
it's. I think there's a lot to be said. I think, I don't know.
Plus, if we have-
Very, very useful way to look at it, because we do want to have an actual number of people, speak, and ironically, these fellows have suggested, and it's an important one, that many of the people on these small lakefront roads are from out of state, and so they're not at all. And boy, we could, I think what our school budget would be if we was.
So it would give us time to check into the BEAD program. It would give us opportunity for additional meetings.
Yeah.
Public comment, summertime. I don't know. It's a thought. I don't know. But we might just be kicked.
We won't know we're kicking it down. We won't know I'm absolutely convinced we won't know any more about the BEAD program. Because I want to go back to Ken for a second. The upside of paying a subsidy is that if we owned the asset, we would have significant ongoing costs. This is kind of an owning or renting thing in terms of a home. You're paying rent, but the landlord has to fix the roof. And so the gain that we get for subsidizing their expansion at $400,000 or subsidizing our own network at $1.8 million, which is what we're talking about over 20 years. The gain that we get is if the lines come down in a storm, the town has no responsibility. If the equipment goes obsolete, the town has no responsibility. It's theirs. But there are many myriad arguments on each side of this. That's the issue.
So I have a thought for tonight, getting that it's 8:42. I've said in the past, I kind of wish I had some time to pause because I'll make a decision and then I'll think, oh, I wish I had those pieces of information. I think if we can wait till the 16th to take board action on this, that would be my suggestion right now, just because it's late. I know we've been sounding a lot of ideas off. I know it does delay it another 2 weeks, but that's my thought on this topic, because I think we could deliberate.
I feel some.
Okay, if that's.
Yeah.
I see nods.
I got nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Just, okay.
Now,
Perfect. Okay, thank you. I think there's a lot going on here and I think it's important. I'm gonna have to make, thank you. So with that, we have supplements and abatements, none, town manager report. Okay, board member, reports.
So that April 10th, solid waste committee that Wayne's gonna host, is now gonna be in Reedfields. I'm not able to be, I'm gone on the 10th. And so they're gonna hold it in Reedfields.
Okay,
I can go in your stead.
If you would like to, yeah. I'll give you information about it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do
Okay.
that.
All right, from the Aging and Home Committee, the space at the church is the center space is gonna shift to what's now to the other room in the basement, the fellowship hall. We'll be talking tomorrow about things to do to get ready for that.
I wanted to, just give an update. The town manager hiring committee has, met since our last meeting. We've met twice and have, the committee has, responded to the directive the select board made in terms of, developing, an opinion, information, research on the town manager state statute. So the plan is for April 16th meeting to give a more formal, presentation and conversation.
Good.
On that topic. I will say at this point, the opinion of the group is for the select board to pursue the state statute form of town manager. But we'll unpack that on the 16th with committee members present.
To put that on the warrant for the vote.
Yeah, I think
Is
whether,
that-
well, we, according to the state statute, and we can go through that, we'd have to
Okay.
do that special town meeting, remember that?
Oh, right,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right after regular.
But I think
town meeting.
ultimately,
That's
the
what I mean.
committee is going to, review the research that they've acquired and then present,
Yeah.
you know, a report on that.
Yeah.
I see committee members are here. Is there anything you would like to add to that update? Okay. Great. Public comments. Mike,
The next meeting is on 16th.
yes,
It's here.
yes,
Will there be? Will there be one on the 30th, Tuesday the 30th?
I don't know.
First and third.
No.
right?
No.
No, it will be the first,
Not normal. So then the next one would be May 7th.
yeah, May 7th and then the 21st.
First and third
First and
Tuesdays.
third.
And so wait a minute, I want to go back to what you said. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 meetings until town meeting. I don't think we can put it off.
The internet question.
I really don't think, with four select board meetings between now and town meeting and hearings, things, I think it's a mistake to put it off. If we could decide to put it off to November, but I think it's a mistake to defer the decision. Myself, that's just my opinion.
Sure.
I can be.
How about this? Can we,
There's,
I just
there's
wanna-
not much time is all, as Mike reminds us.
I'm gonna come back to that. I just want to make sure we hit public comments.
Mhm.
Any other public comments tonight? Okay, now we can go ahead with that.
I think we need all the time we got if it's gonna be on the warrant.
Sure.
Okay, I thought we were thinking of putting it on the November.
Right, but Trent was saying, let's not make the decision for 2 weeks. And that was your Trent's proposal, and I think that's a mistake, I think,
That's fine.
because I don't think there'd be time at that point.
Oh,
So we should very about to decide.
We can put Spectrum's proposal for a subsidy. We can decide to put Spectrum's proposal for subsidy on the warrant, with or without a recommendation.
Mhm.
We can decide to move toward putting it on the election. We can decide to defer the whole thing. But
Mhm.
I think if we put it off past tonight, we've decided not to put it on the June warrant.
Right.
Because we're running out of time. Does that make sense to people?
Yeah.
And it was fine if we do that, but that's what we're doing if we put it off. But putting it off for 2 weeks and making a decision then is really deciding not to do it.
Fair.
Well, and if the November thing does have a lot of advantages.
So I'm hearing one for November.
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 Amy's saying November. So
I like the idea of doing this to secret ballot vote. Because it's gonna be people in different parts of town opposing each other's needs. It's gonna be,
That'll be
it's
possible,
gonna be
right?
a very divisive town meeting conversation.
So that's what we'll do.
It will probably go to a
So
secret
November.
ballot anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't like the idea of putting it on the secret ballot in June, because then it kind of front loads into the budget, depending on what happens.
Yep.
So I think if we're gonna do, I see a lot of reasons to do it in November.
Good.
Is that, people see it that way?
Mhm.
Amy, what do you think?
I'm good with November.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, do we want to? You know,
Do we need to,
is that?
do we need to go
wanna
further, or do
agree
you
on
just
that
say,
at
okay,
this
we'll,
point? Let's agree on that.
Okay.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Okay,
I really think that the new, I think we can't bind the new board,
got it.
but I think we can agree on a sense that that's the right path, and then it'll be up to the
That's
three of
fine.
you and the other two.
Is it a consensus or is it a vote? You want it to
That's
be?
that's kind of what I'm getting around, but
That's a good
What do
question.
you need it to be? We
I
still have
think,
to-
so we took a vote a few weeks
Oh,
ago.
that's right.
We took a vote a few weeks ago that said that we were gonna put it on this ballot, so I think we should
So we
retract.
intend to, yeah.
So I think we should address. How do we address that in a formal way? Basically, we're taking action. I think probably really the action should be, we're not putting on the June ballot,
With an eye toward putting
Right.
it on the November ballot.
right? I think that,
Okay, I move that we not include Spectrum's proposal on this June's ballot with an eye toward voting on it on the day of the presidential election in November. I'm not, I don't think that binds the board, the future board to do it. But I think that with an eye toward, just saying, let's go, add the aspiration. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Is there a second?
Marianne? What do you think? Does that make sense? I'm
Yes,
not
that,
thinking
yes. I-
Second, now discussion.
I think you should put it to the voters now. You spent 6 years on this. And I
That's
don't
the
know
other
why
argument.
you'd want to wait till the.
Motion's on the table,
Mixed
discussion,
Feelings about it.
all in favor?
Mhm.
I'm in favor.
I'm gonna abstain. I just,
Okay, that's fine.
I was willing to come up with language, but I still see too many arguments in every direction.
Okay. Public comments, oh, executive session.
Executive session.
Right, folks. How,
Forgotten that.
We will move it to next meeting. Or-
do we have, is it, can we move it to next meeting? Can this,
With the timing of it, with it being so late, I think it's really appropriate. I feel-
I'll take that recommendation.
Yeah.
Any opposition to that?
Will we adjourn?
Okay, move we adjourn.
Second.
No executive session if you're waiting.
Watch this.